Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
Those fingers in my hair, that sly come hither stare, that strips my conscience bare, it's witchcraft.
Ow! Oh, I burnt myself on that cauldron. Tim, those vapors are really strong. What are you supposed to be? Some sort of warlock or wizard?
No, Tim. I'm practicing Wicca. It's a pagan religion that goes back thousands of years. And no, I'm not a devil worshiper. And we don't sacrifice Christians, although there are, or animals. In fact, we love our animal friends.
Well, I know that you lost your favorite adopted buddy Earl recently, and you were pretty heartbroken over him.
He was my familiar and that of April's. Our guest tonight will shed light on our pets in the occult. But let me go back to stirring the pot. I'm trying to cast a love spell to attract that gorgeous blonde over there. Ooh. Oh, it's witchcraft. Bubble, toil and
trouble.
More trouble. Witchcraft. Well, now we're back into the KCOR studios. And
I don't know if our spell worked.
Well, the gorgeous blonde is getting closer. But that cauldron really was hot. You gotta watch out when you it's not all just easy to do. You got to be patient, and you got to learn the craft and what to do. Now, our guest tonight is a friend of mine for many, many years, and she does not profess to be a witch, but she is an occultist and a shaman. And she's recently written a book for us, one of several that she's done in the Yes You Can kind of self-help series. So why don't you tell us who we're going to be speaking with?
Oh, yeah, sure. It'd be my pleasure, Tim. Well, we have Maria DeAndrea back again with us. Now, Maria is a very good friend of Exploring the Bizarre, and always happy to have her with us. So now, Maria is an internationally known professional psychic from Budapest, Hungary. And since early childhood, she's demonstrated high spiritual awareness and psychic ability. Over her lifetime, and as a spiritual leader, she has provided psychic guidance and enlightenment to many people, assisting them on their own personal path of spiritual self-discovery. Now, Maria is known for a unique form of divination called rune casting. This method was used by Vikings and Europeans to unlock information about the past, present, and future by tapping into the universal mind. Now, as well, Maria is a well-known author and has written such absolutely fabulous books, which I highly recommend that after the show, people immediately go to Amazon and buy them all. She has like Secret Magical Elixirs of Life, How to Eliminate Stress and Anxiety Through the Occult, Curses and Their Reversals, Occult Grimoire and Magical Formulary, Heaven Set Money Spells, and her most recent, Witchcraft, the Occult, and How to Select a Familiar. So, Maria, thanks for being with us once again on Exploring the Bizarre.
Thank you so much for having me again. I love the show, and we always have so much fun. Plus, I love that you guys are so knowledgeable.
Well, thank you very much. We'll have to have you on more often with Kadoos like that. But okay, there are probably a few people out there who didn't hear you on Coast to Coast a week or so ago because they were tuned in here to KCOR, as they should be. But why don't you give us just a brief background check? I mean, you certainly have a presence there on Google and on Amazon, and that you have your own website. But give us a little rundown on how you came to be a shaman and a psychic. I mean, is it something you grew up with?
Well, actually, I've always been psychic. It's more that you start going to school, and in school, you realize that everybody doesn't see, the people that passed away walking through the room, or they don't pick up on, a lot of information about other people that you pick up on. So it's really funny because I always look at it like breathing. When you're young, you just assume everybody's breathing. You don't have a reason to ask them if they are. So I really thought everybody was seeing the same things or feeling the same things or getting the same information. And it actually runs in my family. But I do feel it's something that you can teach people, hence the books, because I feel that everybody has a base of being intuitive or having a gut feeling or whatever the person likes to call it. So I do feel everybody has that, but I look at it as artists. Like some people are artists, but everybody can draw except me. Yeah. But my father was always psychic. And then on my mother's side, my grandparents were trance mediums. My grandfather did automatic writing. And then both my adult sons also do readings. So, it's really funny because it just comes down the line. Now, with the shamanic part, I'm a shaman through Europe because in Europe, you really have to study differently. So as a shaman, it's not the same as the shaman in this country. It is the same, as an example, as Native American shaman or, some of the other countries. But it's not quite the same as they think over here, because here, a lot of times somebody has an expertise like healing, and all of a sudden they're shaman. It's like, no, you're a phenomenal healer. Doesn't make you a shaman. So it's a little different.
And what was the first thing, though, that well, you came over here to the United States during the revolution in Hungary. What year would that have been?
Well, the revolution was actually in 1956, which just aged me, huh? But I got here when I was about 9 or so, because I was in Austria for a little while. We escaped to Austria and then came here. So then I, went back on and off because, like I said, I'm a shaman through Europe. And again, it's very different because as a shaman in Europe, you have to know so many different things before you're actually a shaman, as opposed to one or two things. And I always laugh because when you think about it with a shamanic outlook, you have to be able to do prophecy, which is psychic, right? You have to be able to be the religious leader, think in tribes. Okay, so tribal, which is why I'm an interfaith minister. You have to be able to help make decisions with the, I was going to say with the chief, but sometimes it's a council, which is why I'm a counselor. You have to be able to do healing. You have to be able to teach, which is why I have the books. And one of the things that I find funny that they don't think of over here, if you're Native American or if you're a shaman through Europe, you actually need to know weapons because you need to protect the tribe spiritually, which is an occult side, right? But also physically. So we actually know weapons. We just try not to explain that too much.
In fact, I noticed that you have a photo in your house, and the photographs that I've seen, you with weapons from being is it a ninja, or I mean, what would you call yourself as far as that goes?
Well, I do archery because that's a major thing in Hungary, so I do that. But I can also teach Tai Chi and Qigong, which is a form of different forms of martial arts. And Qigong is actually where all the arts came from. It's energy.
It's energy. And you work with the same energy when you do your psychic readings and your psychic healing?
Oh, yeah. Everything's connected. I always look at it as energy is everywhere. Everything is energy. The only difference between, say, a table and us is the rate of vibrations per second. Like the vibration of the earth is 100,000 vibrations per second. So when you're doing healing, your vibration actually, while you're healing somebody, matches that of the earth energy. And then when you're not doing healing, it just goes back to dropping down to a lower level where we normally are. So it's just tuning into the same energy source in different forms for different reasons.
Now, I know you've written a book on time travel and contacting the spirit world. You do a lot of this work out of body?
And actually, I really do, because when you're looking at different realms, what you're doing is you're tapping into that energy. The way it really works when you're creating situations, and you know me, so I only do positive because I truly believe what you put out comes back. So when you're working on that level, it's like electricity. You don't see it, but you don't put your hand in the socket, right? Mm-hmm. So you're dealing with different energy. But out of body, we're connected differently where we can be more direct. So the way you actually create things in your life, and I've been calling it TAP, T-A-P, because, you know, I got tired of explaining it in a different way. And I found this is the easiest way to explain how it works. So think of a triangle pointing up. At the base on the left, you're putting out thought. Right? So you're manifesting, it's T for thought. So you're manifesting, this is really what you want, this is what you're creating in your life, okay? It goes to the top, which is the astral plane, right? And it forms there. Think of it as etheric energy coming together to form a situation, something physical, emotional on any level, okay? And then it comes back down to the right-hand bottom, which is physical. So you're putting it out in thought, it forms on the astral, and it comes back to the physical plane so that you can get, you know, your car, your new home. It manifests like that.
And a Harley. I think we should mention to the listeners that you are actually ride a Harley.
Well, I always look at it as we have a sense of adventure. People think that when you're spiritual, you're somewhere in a cave chanting, and it's kind of like, no, we have more of a sense of adventure because, first of all, I teach as an example psychic self-defense. We are safer than most people, so our fear level is not the same. So we have a sense of adventure. I always look at it as spirit, but we're working out of a physical body.
when you do this out of body transmissions, are there spirits and beings that you actually derive some of your information from? Are you in contact with those that have passed over, guardian angels, or who are your spirit guides? I guess that's what I kind of wanted to sum it up as.
Okay. Well, basically, I don't have a specific spirit guide where some people say they have one. I don't have that because I tune in and I connect with the other side for different reasons, for different situations. So as an example, if I'm doing a reading and somebody's asking about a person or a pet actually that passed away, I can find them because I do it in that form. So they don't always pop up around the person. People just assume that. I always laugh because part of me is saying, you know, sometimes they're busy, yeah, but I can find them. Okay. The other part is, depending on the situation that I'm working on, I'm going to call in whatever spirit or entity that I need for that particular situation. So I'm not dealing with, as an example, just Wicca or just Christian or just anything. I tune into whatever suits the purpose the best at that time. But I find if I'm going out of body and I'm not working on something, okay, I see all sorts of things. In the beginning, I had an experience that actually spooked me the first time I did that. Then it took me a while to go, oh, okay, let me try this again.
What
so
were you spooked by?
Positive and negative.
What were you spooked by?
Oh, Well, the first time I went out of body was by accident because I was doing occult work and doing readings consistently for a longer period of time, and I just kind of shifted. So I was seeing at a distance, out of body, I was seeing, looked like a row of monks, just because of the cloak. I don't know who they were. And it was like a procession, and they were going from right to left, and there's this long line, and I really wanted to get up closer to see them. I've now learned if they're at a distance, leave it alone. But I didn't know that at the time. So I went to get closer, and as I got closer, I got this feeling of being warned to stay away. But then you guys know me, and I kind of went, oh, let me get closer anyway. And then I got that warning again, and I went, well, you know how much I listen. So I went to get a little closer, and all of a sudden it just, I'm trying to think of a way to say this. It's like you get a warning, and it just feels like chills, and you just kind of drop back into your body. So that unnerved me a little because I just wanted to see what they look like underneath the cloak, underneath the hood, and I never found that out. Ooh. And then the time after that...
Were these like shadow people, or...?
No, they look very physical because you're on the other plane. They look physical. It's like you actually have to think if they're physical or not, because they look the same, because you're in the same realm.
Well, I know in one of your books on evocation, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
You talk about evoking spirits. Individuals can, and you've also written a chapter or two in the book on angel spells. So I take it you believe that people who are not even adept like you are at being a shaman or a full-time psychic can learn to use these otherworldly beings for positive benefits in their life.
Oh, definitely, because I feel, and I say it in pretty much every book I've ever written, I always say you need some form of psychic self-defense before you do anything. Okay. Now, that could be something minor, as an example, if you're not going to get very heavy and complicated with things. So I do have protection prayers that I developed through time that are in the books. If you carry the stone, it's called tiger eye. That's a form of protection, but it's also a boomerang. So if something negative is being sent to you, it just sends it back. We're not harming anybody. We're just sending it back because after a while, you can't really keep having somebody attacking you. So we send it back. For them not to get it back, all they have to do is stop sending it to you. But I do feel...
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. But I do feel that everybody has this ability. So it's very real. If you look at spirits, interdimensional beings, deities, goddesses, angels, fairies, genii.
Well, that's another thing you've written about. You have a book on how to use the Aladdin's lamp and to contact positive jinn forces, I guess you would call it. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's very positive because we only deal with the positive. We never deal with negative because there are repercussions, and I truly believe what you put out comes back. So I never do anything negative, which, by the way, people don't understand because people always go, oh, you need the balance. It's like, well, no, you don't. You don't need a balance on a negative side, so we only do positive. And I find when you're calling in, as an example, the genii, when you're calling them in, you always have control because any deity, anything that you call in, you have control because you're in the physical body and you have free will. So you're always in control. People just forget that. And we do magic all the time. People just don't think about it. You know what I'm saying? They just don't understand that word. And, it's just vibrational.
You use a lot of candles and incense and oils in your work. In fact, I know you have a book, The Complete Magical, Spiritual, and Occult Oils workbook from A to Z, and another a book, a miracle, a candle spells. How does this incorporate it into the work of the occult when someone is doing this? And I guess it applies to witchcraft as well.
It really applies to all forms. So as an example, with the book on the oils, it really gives you a list of all the oils that you can use, how to use them. It gives you little formulas.
Tremendous
and it's
reference work. Tremendous reference work. It's got to be the best book on the subject, and it's very thick and it's very learned, I guess is the way that you would describe it. How could a little dab of oil, though, and used with a candle or a ritual, pump up the action?
Okay, well, it's vibrational. So remember I said everything in the universe vibrates at different rates. So if you look at gemstones, candles, herbs, oils, they all have their own vibration. And first of all, it's really funny. I have friends that work in the science field, wonderful scientists, and they can actually prove the vibrations now. Now, the funny part is, we've known this for centuries, but it's good that they can prove it. We love feedback. So everything vibrates, and it's like a magnet. So as long as you have it within, say, 3 feet of your body, it will attract whatever you are working on. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to think about it. If you're using it, it has its natural vibration. When you think of plants, as an example, whether it's an oil or a part of the plant or the plant, as an example, if you have a carnation speeds up your natural healing process. So if somebody doesn't feel well, as an example, if they're in the hospital, if they just don't feel well at home, if you're going to bring them a present anyway, you want to make it a carnation, because that will speed up their natural healing process. They don't have to know about it. They don't have to understand it. You can just go, oh, it's pretty, bought it for you here. But it actually works on that level.
Mm-hmm. Now, go ahead, Maria.
No, just saying they all have their own purpose, and a lot of them are multi-purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we come back from our break, which is just coming up here in a short while, we want to get into the book that you've just done, Witchcraft, the Occult, and How to Select a Familiar. We all love our pets. In fact, I on Facebook, I know just about every person who has friended me, and I'm up to the 5,000 limit. In case some of you have tried to friend me on Facebook and haven't heard back from me, it's not that I don't want to be your friend; it's that I don't have room for you at the moment. But you've done this workbook in study guide, and it's something that very few people, I think, actually have ever written about. And it is something that's intriguing. We think of witches as having a familiar and flying off on their broom to some black mass or something like that, but it's certainly more than that. Anyway, we'll be right back with Maria DeAndrea, and we'll be hearing from Tim Swartz as well, because I know he's out there.
Now back to exploring the bizarre with two of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal, your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
All right, and welcome back to Exploring the Bizarre. I'm Tim Swartz, and tonight our guest is Maria DeAndrea, and we're talking about all kinds of things, but we want to bring up her most recent book, which is called Witchcraft, the Occult, and How to Select a Familiar, a Shaman's Personal Workbook and Study Guide. Maria, but I wanted to ask you just really quick. You had said something during the first part of this show about how other members of your family had, similar psychic or shamanistic abilities. And I've often wondered, is this something that, runs in a family's a genetic makeup? Is it in, like some kind of vibrational state that is able to be passed down, like through father and mother to the children, or kind of a combination of all of the above?
I think it's a combination, because I truly believe that everybody is psychic, because originally it was your survival instinct. So when you think of, as an example, yourself walking down the street, and I know everybody's had this. So you're walking down the street and you feel after a while that somebody's following you, and you turn around and they really are. Now, they may just be going in the same direction, but your survival instinct intuitively will kick in that it's uncomfortable that somebody, the same person, is following you for too long. So I believe everybody has it. I think the only difference is when you're coming from a family that is working with it on any level. The difference is I have 2 sons. I never told my sons they can't see things, they can't do things. I think it's just that we're more open to it, so we're not saying, when you're young, no, you didn't see that. How can you make that up? It's a made-up fantasy, a made-up friend. We kind of go, okay, so what are you seeing? So the difference is we didn't shut it down. I think everybody has it. And if you listen to really young children, they're so tuned in, and then through time, they tend to, shut that down because of society. So I think it's more like that. A lot of it, as an example, I didn't really teach my sons anything until they asked. And the reason is, it isn't everybody's path. So I wasn't going to assume that they were interested in this or they wanted to do any of this. And they're in professional fields, and they also do this. So this is not what they do full-time like I do, but they decided that this is something that they're comfortable with. And, of course, they grew up around me, so, it's not like you could miss it.
Well, now, okay, your new book, Witchcraft, the Occult, and How to Select a Familiar. Now, most people may think of a familiar as, say, like, who is it, Salem on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the black cat. But, a familiar can be so much more. But, possibly you might want to tell our audience just exactly what a familiar is.
Well, first of all, the connection can be to a physical, like a cat, or a non-physical, non-corporeal being. So it's not just assumed that we're going to have some black cat running around and that's your familiar. Even if you have one, doesn't mean it's your familiar. So first of all, it's a psychic link between you and your familiar. And what they do is they help you in magical ways to create situations, to help you in situations where you need some extra help. And they work with you by choice. So it's your choice that you pick one, and it's their choice if they decide to work with you or not. And a lot of times I've done readings where I will see different totems. And totems, familiars, they're the same thing. So I will see different totems around a person, and I will tell them the connection. And then the way you look at it, if you already have one, the way you look at it is you'll find that you're going to resonate with it because you were already interested in that type of being or animal. And a totem can be an archangel, an angel, a fairy. It's not always animals. It could be a gemstone. It depends on what your connection is. So I tell people, if you're going to the museum, as an example, and you always go to a particular section, it means there's something in there that you connect to. If you really love cats, Tim, if you really love cats, there's a reason that you have that connection. And if you really look, not at the spirit animal descriptions, but if you really look at the description of the real animal, you're going to find exactly what you have in common. You're going to have traits in common always. So as an example, we don't give them people traits. They're not people. Think of originally in the tribal times, they were really looking at the animal. So as an example, if there's a fox, and that's your totem, people always look at a fox as being sneaky because it does not run in a straight line. Well, first of all, it doesn't have people traits. It's not being sneaky. It's in survival mode. Because if it runs in a straight line and there's a hunter on a horse chasing it, it's going to be quicker than the fox and it's dead, right? So it's not being sneaky. It's in survival mode. So somebody that has a fox trait, as an example, because they have that kind of totem, it means that in a negative situation, they're going to try to talk their way out of it first before doing anything aggressive. It's a survival instinct. And in business, by the way, that's a good way to go. So it's a different perspective. Yeah. And also, if you have a familiar, say, in a different realm where it's not physical, okay, you have to remember that there's no limit on time or space. They don't have that. That's man-made, so that we can work with each other and say, okay, I'm meeting you at 2:00, rather than at some point, and then nobody hooks up with each other to meet. So time and space is really a more of a man-made concept. The other thing with familiars is that it's very, very positive because they are there to help you. They don't have negative ones. Basically, they're there to help you, and it's your free will if you're doing something positive or negative. But again, they agree with you if they're going to work with you. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't anythings out there that are negative, because there's an occult law that says like attracts like. So if somebody's negative, they're not attracting a positive familiar. I hate to say it like that, but really they're not. So because we only do positive, and there's nothing negative in my books, you're only going to attract positive.
So there could be negative familiars?
Yes, because if you're a negative practitioner, okay, you're not attracting something positive, because somebody, some person, some, deity, some animal that is positive will not feel comfortable around anybody negative, so they just won't come and help.
So now,
some animals have different dispositions. I mean, take our buddy Earl, for example. I mean, there were some days when he was the perfect little kitty, and then other days when he might have been a little snippy. Can we say he was possessed?
Well, I would not think that, only because they have different traits, personality traits. But since you mentioned that, you're actually right, because familiars can come in on the spirit plane, and they can also come in on the physical plane. As an example, they can actually possess the body of, say, a cat, since that's what we're talking about. So the spirit helping the person would actually be inside the cat physically, the physical body of the cat. So they can actually come in and take over. People don't think about it like that.
Okay, so
the cat can be your familiar, where the cat chose to work with you. So it can actually go either way.
So now, is this where the impression or maybe the bad publicity that came about, especially like back in the medieval times, that familiars were associated with the devil, that it was the devil that sent familiars to witches as a gift, so to speak?
I would actually think so, because they do have possession situations, and again, that could be a positive entity. But at that time, they just looked at witches as negative, period, And really, it's a nature-based religion, Wicca. It's a nature-based religion. It's just that it came before Christianity, so they look at it as, they were looking at anything negative that came up had to be witchcraft or pagan. It was kind of that free-for-all. They blamed that for everything, and it was really a positive religion.
It was just propaganda on the Christians' behalf.
Right.
Spreading the bad news about the competition.
That's like, well, I'm an interfaith minister because, shaman, you have to be a minister in some form. And I always laugh, because every time somebody tells me about a religious war, the words don't even match. I don't know what they're thinking.
The words don't go together like jumbo shrimp, you know.
That's a good one. I like that.
Okay, so now in your book, you have a series of different types of animals. But one of the things that really surprised me when it comes to familiars is that a familiar doesn't necessarily have to be an animal or a living creature.
Exactly. So, like I said, it could be an herb, it could be a gemstone. And we were talking earlier, and it could be a car or a motorcycle. When you think of people, and I'm sure everybody knows at least one person, right, where they just baby the car and they named it, and, you can't touch their car because they just washed it. There's a connection. Because normally we love our cars because we have to go places, but we're not giving them names and going, ooh, like you can't breathe on my car. And even people that are at the car shows, that doesn't mean that they're connected to their cars like that. It means they like their car. It doesn't mean they're connected on that level. But when they are, you have to look at what are the traits of that particular car, including color as an example. What's the trait of that car that they love? Because that trait is with them. They also have that trait. That's like, since you mentioned it earlier, I have a bike because it gives me a sense of freedom. So I'm connected to spiritually being able to be in different realms at different times at different places. So I'm not that limited. And it's funny because my parents used to race cars. They were into motorcycles. And my mother was a really good driver. So it's actually funny because my family has a very strong sense of adventure. Some of them have more of a sense of adventure than I do, which is funny because mine's pretty high. Also, because we do psychic self-defense, not that much scares us, for lack of a better way to say that, because we're really safe everywhere. That doesn't mean we're stupid about it. It doesn't mean you're going to jump out of a plane without a parachute. But it gives you a different sense of control because you're safe. So when you're looking at gemstones as an example, there's some people where they have a particular gemstone, whether it's in jewelry or not, that they always gravitate towards. And you have to look at what are the properties of the stone. As an example, if you look at, what's a common one? Turquoise. Turquoise is an all-purpose stone. So with turquoise, it attracts love, health, protection, finance. It's covering a lot of different ground. That's what I was trying to say. Mm-hmm. So if they're wearing that because they love that, then you have to look at the person and say, what mode are they in? Are they looking for protection? Or are they in a wonderful relationship and it just makes them feel good, so they gravitate towards that stone, or a wonderful friendship? So if you know what somebody's attracted to on a very heavy level, you kind of get a feeling of their personality, so of who they really are. So when people get a chance, I would suggest look at what are you attracted to. It gives you a sense of who you are. Now that can change, so a lot of times it's who you are at that moment if you're going through phases. But there are some situations that you're going to gravitate towards permanently. Like if you really like a cat. And by the way, one of my sons has a Pegasus as a totem, and my other one actually has a physical squirrel. So go figure. You don't know. Yeah. Part of it you looked at and then went, what the heck?
So I don't want you to give too much away from your book, and you kind of you touched on it just a little bit right there. But if you have somebody who is not familiar with these familiar with these aspects,
that was good.
and they're wanting to find a familiar, what are the steps that they need to take to I suppose get themselves in that frame of mind to find out what's best suited for them?
Okay, well, there's actually a lot of different ways, and we have a list of different modalities in the book because sometimes you're comfortable with one, sometimes you're comfortable with something else. So, as an example, vision questing is a little bit heavier, and that's usually used more by people that have been doing things on the occult or spiritual realm for a while. And it is in my book, among other things. Okay. And again, it's more working with your totems or familiars, whichever way you like to look at it. Okay. But it's very serious because we're really looking for a real connection. So we don't really take it lightly. And as an example, if you look at vision questing, one of the easiest ways you can do it is if you're going to spend, say, a week, and you're going to each day observe something different in nature. So as an example, one day you're going to look at what colors seem to come up more often visually when you're just walking around or at work. Are you seeing or noticing more the color green, more the color orange? What color seems to come up more often? Because there's a connection. Again, it doesn't have to be on the spiritual level. It could be physical. Colors are physical frequencies. So you can also look, as an example, at what do you notice more? Do you notice a building more, an area more, the park more, the city more, particular animals? Are you drawn to particular animals? If you go to a museum, what's the first place you look at? Do you look at the Native American section? Do you look at the Mayan sections? Egypt, where do you go? What interests you the most? So if you spend a week where each day you pick a different thing, you pick colors one day, you pick nature one day, you pick, as an example, what animals are you noticing or thinking about? And that could be on TV. It's funny, if you're looking at the TV and you're looking at shows with pets, which ones are you looking at? So which one do you notice on the show? It really gives you an idea of where your connection is. And that's an easier way to do it. That's not the heavier level of vision questing, but that's a very first step. It's a minor part of it. But it still gives you an idea of where you resonate. If you're connected with it, it's telling you something about you and how to work with that ability to enhance it, to make it higher. Decide you may not want to work with it right now, but at least you know what your ability is.
All right. Well, Maria, we've got about 5 minutes left in this segment, and I want to remind our audience that after the next break to stay tuned, because we got another half hour where I'm going to be talking with Tim Beckley about the history of the occult and rock and roll, David Bowie, UFOs, and other fascinating things. But
he's a great guest.
That's right.
Absolutely fabulous, fantastic. He's appeals to all generations, everybody, earthlings, spirits, not so much angels, but.
All right, Tim. Let's finish Marie out here, and
I love it. That was good.
that was the master of self-promotion. So, Maria, why don't you let our audience know where they can find you online, where they can find your books, and maybe connect with you for personal psychic readings from you?
Sure. Well, first of all, my email address is my first initial last name, so it's mdandrea100@gmail.com. My cell number is 631-559-1248, and my site is just my first and last name, mariadeandrea.com. So first of all, they can find me, and second of all, I won't forget the name of the site. I'm not much of a computer person, but I'm working on it.
and where can people find your books?
Okay, and that's going to be on Amazon, Kindle, Nook, and Inner Light Publications with Timothy Beckley.
Oh yeah, well, a conspiracy journal, and they can contact us through KCOR. And you've got so many books here. I was just looking at the titles, and of course we've published, I think, most of these. You have another one, I guess, that ties in with the subject of familiars. is called Mythical, Magical Beasts and Beings.
Oh, yeah.
We seem to forget
well,
about
they're
that
all
one.
around us, so whether they're ordinary or not, they're everywhere. People just think of them as not being real and in stories, but there's a reason that they're in stories. So a lot of them really exist. More on the other side.
And if you want to bring a lover back or attract a new one, we have the Sexy Medium's Love and Lust spells. Mind you, just not love. We got to throw in a little lust here. Okay.
Well, I look at it as we're spirit, but we're in a physical body. You need the balance.
I know which way I balance. That's for sure. And you can take it with you, paying your way into God's higher kingdom. That's a good one, because a lot of wealthy people want to know, what did I work for all this shit all my life? And so you can take it with you. Look at King Tut and all. They took it with them. They even had all kinds of gems and stuff stuck in their eye socket, right, Tim? I mean,
yeah.
And their sarcophaguses were just absolutely tremendous. I mean, I want mine to look like that.
All right. Well, Tim, we're going to have to say goodbye to Maria for this segment. So, Maria, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Always such fun. I love you guys.
Maria, we love you. We love you, and I'll see you in Atlantic City.
I will definitely see you there.
You betcha. Right by the Ghostbusters slot machine. You bet. Yeah. The penny slots.
You've been listening to Exploring the Bizarre with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. They're taking back the night by jetting non-stop across the cosmos in search of the truly bizarre and totally unexplained, with you as their co-pilot. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on Exploring the Bizarre and hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz, check out their KCOR Digital Radio Network page. Follow their YouTube channel at MRUFO 1100. Exploring the Bizarre.